So if we go back to 490 BC, we find the most disciplined, probably the most terrifying military force on Earth at the time.
Oh, a Persian army.
Oh, absolutely. Unstoppable.
Right. But at the Battle of Marathon, they just turned and ran for their lives. And the crazy part is they weren't broken by some superior tactical maneuver.
Yeah, there was no flanking move that defeated them.
Exactly. They weren't overwhelmed by advanced weaponry either. According to the ancient accounts, that massive professional war machine was defeated by, well, by a sound in the woods.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. They experienced this sudden, totally irrational terror that just shattered their ranks, and it sent them fleeing right into the sea.
Total chaos.
Yeah. And today, when you feel that exact same heart-pounding, totally irrational urge to run, like, whether you're standing at a podium getting ready to give a speech, or maybe you wake up to a strange noise in your house, we use a very specific 5-letter word to describe it.
We say we panicked. We say we panicked. And that is our mission for you on today's deep dive. We are exploring some incredible source material today, specifically an article titled The Greek Myth Behind the Word Panic, along with some key definitions from Merriam-Webster.
It's such a great topic because, we treat panic like a clinical psychological term today, but peeling back the linguistic layers, it reveals this whole landscape of untamed wilderness and invisible forces.
Right, and we're going to unpack this profound contradiction. We're looking at how a mythological half-man, half-goat deity who basically just wanted to play music in the woods somehow gave us the exact word for a sudden, overpowering fright.
What's fascinating here is that contrast. The source text describes a deity who is entirely detached from the grand, dramatic conflicts of standard mythology. I mean, he lives a lifestyle of rustic serenity.
He's just hanging out.
Exactly. He's mostly interacting with shepherds, minding his own business, yet his name became the global shorthand for unadulterated terror.
It's quite a leap.
It really is. And to bridge that gap, you have to look at the environment that created him.
Which means we have to leave the marble temples behind entirely, right?
Oh.
Because when you think of Greek mythology, your mind immediately goes to the VIPs.
Oh, for sure. You picture Zeus throwing lightning bolts from a throne on Mount Olympus?
Right. Or Athena standing in some massive, mathematically perfect temple in the middle of a bustling city.
Yeah.
The gods we usually hear about are forces of civilization.
They represent law and war and agriculture, civic order.
Yeah. But Pan is the complete opposite of all that.
He is the antithesis of all that. The text really emphasizes his bestial nature. I mean, he is literally half man, half goat.
Hooves and all.
Hooves, horns, a very heavy coat of fur, and his domains are perfectly aligned with that physical appearance. He's associated with springtime, fertility, hunting, farming, meadows, and above all, the untamed wilderness.
He's basically the physical embodiment of everything outside the safety of the city walls.
Exactly. And his origins reflect that wildness, too. The article points out that unlike the major Olympians who have these, meticulously tracked family trees.
Like divine genealogy charts.
Right, exactly. Pan's parentage and his lineage are highly contested across various ancient stories. He doesn't have a neat, orderly origin story because he doesn't belong to the orderly world. He just sort of emerges from the wild.
From a very specific place, though. Arcadia.
Yes. Arcadia is really the geographical anchor for understanding the psychology of Pan. It was this rural, very mountainous region in the central Peloponnese.
Way down in the far south of mainland Greece.
Right. And for the ancient Greeks who lived in those highly structured coastal city-states like Athens or Sparta, Arcadia was effectively the edge of the known world.
It was the boondocks.
Totally. It was rugged terrain full of dense forests, deep valleys, and these massive limestone peaks.
I always look at Pan as kind of the ultimate off-the-grid homesteader.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. He's the ancient survivalist who is deliberately distancing himself from society. He doesn't want to engage with city laws or political drama. He just wants to wander the mountains playing his simple pipes.
Which, as the article notes, are named after him, the panpipes.
The panpipes.
Exactly.
Exactly. He is just a god of the mud and the undergrowth.
And because he represented the unpredictable nature of the wilderness, the way people actually interacted with him was structurally very different from state religion.
You didn't find Pan in a massive, expensive urban shrine.
No, not at all. You found him where the boundaries of civilization ended. The text details how he was venerated in caves, grottos, open fields, and forest clearings.
It was a deeply personal kind of worship, right? Very transactional.
Highly transactional.
Like if you were a shepherd trying to keep your flock alive through a really harsh spring, or maybe a hunter relying on the woods for survival, you didn't go to a priest in a temple.
You wouldn't even have access to one out there.
Right. You walked into a dark cave, you left an offering, and you essentially negotiated directly with the landscape itself. You were stepping into his territory.
You were acknowledging that once you left the city, you were entirely at the mercy of the wild.
Okay, so that sets the stage. But how does this peaceful, music-playing homesteader become a figure of sheer terror?
Well, it comes down to visibility, or rather, the lack of it. The defining characteristic of the Arcadian wilderness is that it is incredibly dense and difficult to navigate. Pan was said to dwell in the thick undergrowth, so he was, by definition, an unseen force.
And being hidden kind of makes him a blank canvas.
Exactly.
If you can't see the god of the woods, he just becomes the default explanation for everything in the woods that you can't understand.
And the primary evidence for this, at least for the ancients, was animal behavior. The source text describes how shepherds would be out watching their flocks on a perfectly calm day.
Just a normal Tuesday in Arcadia?
Right. The environment is completely quiet, there are zero predators in sight. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, the entire flock just jumps up and bolts.
Just massive, chaotic stampedes.
Triggered by absolutely nothing visible. And hunters experience the exact same phenomenon. They'd be stalking an animal silently, doing everything right, only to have their prey inexplicably bolt right before the catch.
Totally ruining the hunt.
Exactly.
I mean, from a modern perspective, we know how herd dynamics work. One sheep gets spooked by like a shifting shadow or something.
A minor visual cue.
Yeah, and its sudden movement triggers the prey drive in the sheep next to it. And within a fraction of a second, that physical reaction just cascades through the entire flock. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism.
Which makes perfect biological sense.
But if you're an ancient Greek shepherd sitting on a hillside, you don't know about cascading evolutionary triggers. You just see chaos erupting from silence. There's no rational trigger. So the blame falls on the unseen god lurking in the bushes.
And the human experience in those woods was just as potent. Pan was blamed for all the peculiar, unnerving noises of the wilderness.
Oh, I hate those sounds.
Right. The unexplainable hoots, sudden cries, howls, or barks that just echo through the mountains. These were the sounds that really preyed on the minds of lone wanderers, or people who found themselves lost far from home as the sun started to set.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because isn't Pan just a metaphor for the fight-or-flight response?
This raises an important question, actually.
Like, were the Greeks literally believing in a goat man sneaking up on their sheep? Or was this just an ancient framework for psychology? Because when a hiker gets spooked by a snapping twig in the dark today, we know it's just the brain flooding the body with adrenaline. Weren't the Greeks essentially doing the same thing, just putting a mythological face on a biological reflex?
That is the crucial insight here. They were doing exactly that, but without the distinction we make today between biology and theology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we have the language of neuroscience today. We understand that sensory deprivation in a dark forest causes the amygdala to essentially hijack the brain's frontal lobe.
The rational mind shuts down.
Exactly. Your ancient survival hardware takes over, turning every single snapping twig into a deadly threat. The ancient Greeks experienced that exact same neurological hijacking, but their vocabulary for it was myth.
So Pan wasn't just a metaphor to them.
No, he was the literal, physical embodiment of that sudden adrenaline spike.
Wow. And by personifying that feeling, they actually made it manageable.
How do you mean?
Well, you can't fight a biochemical reaction in your own brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can leave an offering for a goat god to appease him. It's a way of projecting internal psychological terror onto an external source. It makes the fear feel less abstract.
That is a great point, and it perfectly captures the isolating nature of that fear, too.
Yeah.
When you face a visible threat, say a wolf approaching the flock or a physical enemy in battle, your terror is rational.
You can see it.
You can calculate your odds. You can choose to fight or flee based on observable data. But when a sound echoes in the dark and you are entirely alone, the lack of logic is what paralyzes you. You cannot fight an enemy you cannot perceive.
Which maps flawlessly onto the Merriam-Webster definitions provided in the text.
It really does.
The noun panic is defined as a, quote, sudden overpowering fright.
And I feel like the key word in that definition is overpowering.
Yes, it implies a total loss of control.
Exactly. The logical, civilized brain is overridden by wild, untamed nature. And as a verb, to panic is to experience that alarming, fear-provoking feeling in real time.
The etymological journey from ancient Greek myth to our modern dictionary really highlights how universally human this experience is. The original Greek term was panikondema.
Which translates to what exactly?
It translates roughly to panic fear, meaning the specific kind of fear induced by Pan. And over centuries, that concept moved through French as panique, before finally cementing itself in the English language.
So we dropped the goat god, but we kept the exact psychological condition he represented. Precisely.
Now, we usually think of that condition as an individual experience, right? Like a lone shepherd or a lost hiker. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Right, yeah.
The source material takes this concept and scales it up. It alters the course of world history. This phenomenon wasn't just a personal quirk of the human brain. It was a contagion. And that brings us right back to the Battle of Marathon.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, scaling the concept of panic from an individual in the woods to a mass of humanity in a military formation reveals the true destructive power of this emotion.
Because in 490 BC, you've got the Battle of Marathon. This pitted the ancient Greeks against the massive invading force of the Persian Empire.
This was a clash of civilizations. The Persians were highly trained, overwhelmingly numerous, and they operated with ruthless military precision.
Right, and an ancient army is essentially a machine designed specifically to suppress the individual fight-or-flight response.
It's the whole point of drilling.
Yeah, the whole point of military drilling, of standing in a phalanx with your shields locked together, is to force your rational, structured mind to override the primal urge to run away. You're training thousands of men to literally ignore their amygdalas.
Yet the myth asserts that it was the cry of Pan himself that shattered that machinery.
A sound in the woods.
A sound in the woods. According to the ancient story, the Persians were seized by an unexplainable, overpowering fright. It caused them to break rank, turn, and flee in absolute terror, which directly led to a decisive Greek victory.
It's wild. Taking a flighty, anxious feeling experienced by wandering shepherds and using it to explain the total rout of a global superpower's military force, that is a massive leap.
It is, but sociologically it makes perfect sense. Mass panic operates exactly like a virus.
Oh, emotional contagion.
Exactly. In a crowd, emotional contagion takes over. If one soldier in the front line breaks and runs, driven by that sudden, overpowering fright, the mirror neurons in the men next to him trigger the exact same biological response.
And within seconds, the rigid structure of the army just dissolves.
It becomes a chaotic, stampeding herd, acting no differently than the sheep in Arcadia.
Wow. So the Battle of Marathon myth illustrates that panic is not merely like a minor inconvenience or a fleeting moment of anxiety.
No, it is an overpowering, irrational force capable of dismantling the most highly organized systems human beings can possibly create.
The civilized brain shuts down entirely, the animal brain takes the wheel, and order collapses into total chaos.
And the sheer scale of the terror required to break an army is exactly why the ancients believed only a god could be responsible for it.
It fundamentally changes how you look at the concept of a crowd. Because we think of civilization as this permanent, solid thing. We build systems, we make rules, we form armies to keep the chaos of the natural world at bay.
We try our best.
We do. But the myth of Marathon reminds us that civilization is just a thin veneer over our biology. All it takes is one unseen sound, one unexplainable cry to strip all of that away and leave us acting on pure primal instinct.
And that underlying biology connects the ancient world directly to your everyday vocabulary. I mean, think about it. When you say you are panicked because you can't find your passport on the way to the airport.
The worst feeling.
Right. Or your heart races because a car swerves into your lane. When that happens, you are participating in an unbroken psychological lineage.
The context of our lives has changed completely, but the hardware is identical.
Absolutely identical.
The ancient Greeks blamed a half-goat deity in the woods for the sudden urge to bolt. Today, we might blame a stressful email or a sudden spike in cortisol. But the visceral sensation, that sudden hijacking of your rational thought by an overwhelming need to escape, is the exact same feeling.
And we have spent millennia trying to engineer that feeling out of our lives. We have walled ourselves off from the unpredictability of Arcadia.
Yeah, we built cities. We established climate control. We created these highly structured, predictable routines.
We even had the concept of a panic room in modern architecture.
A panic room, yes.
Right, it's a reinforced steel vault hidden inside a house.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. A panic room is essentially a modern fortress. built specifically to keep the spirit of that ancient goat god out.
Exactly.
It's the ultimate architectural expression of our desire to control the uncontrollable. We want a safe space where the wild, chaotic forces of the world just cannot reach us.
But the irony is, the fear doesn't come from the outside anymore. The wildness is built into our own neurology. We actually carry the Arcadian wilderness inside our heads.
Oh, that's heavy.
The sudden, unexplainable spike of fear that we occasionally feel isn't necessarily a reaction to an external threat. It is our ancient alarm system misfiring in a modern world.
We think we are so far removed from myths and monsters, but every time we use the word, we are unknowingly invoking the name of a wild god of the forest. We are carrying a tiny piece of ancient Greece with us every time our heart skips a beat.
Which leaves us with, I think, a lingering question to consider about how we interact with our own environment today.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, if our very word for sudden, irrational fear comes directly from a woodland nature god, it begs the question, how many of our modern anxieties are actually rooted in a primal fear of the untamed natural world that we've so carefully walled ourselves off from? The next time you feel that sudden spike of fear in your chest when there is no logical danger around, ask yourself, is that just modern stress, or is that Pan playing his pipes in the distance?
Man, that is a thought to hold on to. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden history of the words we use every single day. It's a powerful reminder for you that beneath the surface of our clinical dictionary definitions, the ancient world is still very much alive, and it's actively shaping how we experience our own minds. So keep questioning the language you use, keep exploring the hidden forces around you, and as always, stay curious.